Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, Luann Nigara. Luann has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. Luann brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Today on the show, Mikel Welch joins me. This is one of those pull back the curtain episodes on what we all think the lifestyle of a celebrity interior designer is like. And guess what? Just like when we've talked with Taylor Spellman, Candace Elson, and some of the others, it's really not at all what we think it is. There are bumps in the road, there are plenty of risk-taking situations, and there are a lot of days, like Mikel will share with us, of sleeping on sofas at other people's houses and asking your friends for some help. It is clear that from his upbringing in Southfield, Michigan, when he busied himself with the construction of sofas and dining room tables for imaginary houses, all the way to today, where he runs his interior design business, Mikel Welch Designs, that he is a hard worker and no stranger to having a vision and a dream for himself. Today, he works as an on-air personality and design expert for Pickler and Ben TV show, and he is the brand ambassador to Inspire Closets, in addition to running his own interior design projects. In 2012, you'll hear him talk about the time that he spent working for the Steve Harvey show. He was a set designer, and there he created lavish green rooms for prominent people, including First Lady Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Joan Rivers, Halle Berry, and Tyler Perry, just to name a few. You'll also hear the little turning point that he had with Steve Harvey and on the show. In 2012, before joining the Steve Harvey show, he was on the HGTV Design Stars Season 7, where he finished as a top 4 contender. And before that, he was behind the camera as a set designer for Style Network's hit reality show Jerseylicious in 2011. Over the years, Mikel has appeared as a design expert on WGN TV, CBS TV's The Talk, and he's made special guest appearances on behalf of West Elm, CB2, and Pottery Barn. His designs have been featured in the Huffington Post, HGTV Magazine, Essence Magazine, Chicago's NBC TV, HGTV Shop This Room, and The Fabulous on E! Network, as well as Splash Magazine. Recently, Mikel was profiled in CS Magazine, Modern Luxury Interiors, and Crane's Chicago Business. So this all sounds like exciting fun and games, right? Like he's a lucky guy, right? Well, wait until you hear how it really happened. And I'm going to give you a hint. Grit and confidence. Confidence in himself even before he technically earned it. So now, before we meet Mikel, I want to share some news with you about Kravit Inc. They are very near to launching a brand new website. Yes, now you'll be able to easily shop Kravit, Lee Joffa, and Brunswick and Fee all in one place. It includes new and easy-to-use search features, so you can find the latest products and collections right at your fingertips. And if you want more of the story behind the collection, you can explore the new editorial blog, Inspired, for a behind-the-scenes look at everything Kravit has to offer. Now, the site is not quite technically live yet, but it is very, very soon in coming. So I will make sure I let you know as soon as it is live, but I want you to make a note for yourself. Once it is live, you can use the promo code AWDB10. AWDB10. Okay, so AWDB10. You will get a 10% discount on any Kravit fabric, trim, and wall covering order. All right. So if it's me, I'm starting to look at some Kravit fabrics, trim, and wall covering for any projects I've got currently going on. And then I'm going to stay very keyed in to when this is going live so that I can put 10% in my pocket, right? That's what we're going to do at Window Works. So start sourcing fabric, trim, and wallpaper from Kravit. And the second that the new site is live, I am going to let you know so that you can grab yourself a 10% discount on that first order. Okay? Alrighty, let's get to introducing you to Mikel. Hey, Mikel, thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so this is fun. We actually met in person in the spring of 2017 when we did an event together at Ethan Allen at their flagship
Yes,
store in Manhattan with none other than Barbara Viteri, the designer celebrity, right?
yes, that was so much fun. It was kind of like off the cuff, and she likes the truth, and so we got to give Barbara the truth anytime
Exactly.
we met her.
Exactly. And we had you and Cheryl Eisen and Manuela Moreira. I always say her name wrong. Sorry, Manuela. All of you guys were panelists. And then we had a nice big audience there. We had a lot of
Yes.
designers come. And how gracious were the Ethan Allen people and staff? Wasn't that, didn't they really
Oh,
do like
they
A-list?
yes, they really laid it out. I mean,
Didn't
just
they?
from like the moment you arrived, I mean the appetizers and the cocktails. I mean, it was just a beautiful event.
It really
Beautiful.
was. I mean, look, we both go to a lot of events like this, and anything any showroom or vendor does for you, of course, is appreciated, right? But that
Yes.
was, I mean, they moved entire, sections of their furniture out of the
Right.
way. And, they had A1 audio system there, and we were all mic'd up. And I was just like, and how about, I mean, like the big TV thing behind with all of our pictures up
Oh,
there?
that I think that was like the highlight. It felt like I was on one of like a set that I would have designed
I
for a talk.
know. I know.
That was amazing. I took a couple of snaps of that so I could send it to my mother at home. Like it felt amazing.
Well, and you're being modest because you're accustomed to all that stuff. I was the one who was a little gaga. I was like, wow, I'm feeling it now.
No, it's always fun. It's always fun every single time. It's
Yeah, it was
fun.
great. So, and it's funny because we said that we were going to get you on the show after that. And now finally, almost a
Yes.
year later, we finally have managed to do it. You're a busy man. And I'm so excited to really, pick apart your career because I have to say there's elements of your career that are similar to other designers that I've had the privilege of speaking with these last 2 years. But this whole one, like thread that goes through it, that so many things have come from it is amazing. So I had said in the introduction that you had an interior design firm in Atlanta when you first started out, and then you moved to New York City. And what I wanted to know was, I see once you moved to New York City, you were a set designer for Jerseylicious, you're a set designer for the Steve Harvey show, and then you're on the HGTV Design Star season 7. And so my question is, Mikel, when you moved here to New York from Atlanta, were you thinking, I'm moving to New York to be an interior designer and I want to get into TV and set design and that aspect of design? Or were you just coming to start your business over in New York and an opportunity happened and that was the path you went? How did it happen for you, Mikel?
Well, I have to be very honest with you. It was a bumpy constellation. I can't say it was a straight path. It was like connecting the dots and the stars. Honestly, 2007, I was living in Atlanta, and I was actually very frustrated. And I graduated from college, trying to figure out what to do with my life. And my mother told me that I needed to find my passion, and that I would know what it is because it would be something that I'd be willing to do for free.
Mm.
And so at the time, out of college, I don't know what that means. Like, honestly, I just want to pay my bills and my student loan.
I don't want to do anything for free, Mom. I want to make a lot of
Exactly.
money.
Exactly. So, long story short, I ended up like going to work for Bloomingdale's of all places because I'm like, you know what? I like clothes. I'm going to try to figure out, how to make this work until I, decide what it is I really want to do. I have this like bachelor's degree in business, and it's like, what do you do with this? But
Mm.
on my lunch breaks, I always found myself in Crate and Barrel and Pottery Barn, and I had really had this Oprah like aha moment where it's like, you know what? You're making $11 an hour. You can't afford any furniture, but you're always in these stores on your lunch break. And so, honestly, from there, I ended up going to work for a furniture store called Storehouse Furniture. And I honestly, I'm just gonna be very honest. I was a horrible salesperson because I'm like, you want it or not, like, I'm not gonna chase you around the store. But when I was there, the store manager took a liking to me, and she said, you should take your business degree and you should actually go work in our logistics warehouse. And when I was in the logistics warehouse, I was in charge of like sending off all of the promotional materials for like Elle Decor if they're doing a shoot. And as I'm working, I'm like, I don't want to just send off these materials, for some designer to create. I want to actually create these rooms.
Mm.
And so I ended up going online, and, this is 2007,
Okay.
and there was something called Craigslist. And it was like this new phenomena that was, it was only in maybe like 4 or 5 cities at this point. But there was an ad for a gentleman who was looking for a design assistant. And I took a risk and a gamble, and I ended up interviewing, for this job with him. And I worked with him for a year. And in that moment, I honestly just learned how to operate a design business. What I found was I actually had the chops to put the rooms together, but I needed, the background on how to run a firm.
Mm.
So I worked with him for a year, and I decided, you know what, I think I should go off on my own. So I went on Craigslist myself, and I would offer to redesign clients' homes for free. They had to pay for the furniture, but I would actually design the space for them. So that's how I honestly began to, build a portfolio, and having a background in marketing actually helped me from a business perspective, because I said, you know what, these rooms are okay. I'm getting people who have budgets of like $5,000, which is not much, but how can I get someone with more disposable income? So I ended up um, thinking of my business in another manner, and I went onto a site that listed several special event auctions, and I would donate my service to, let's say, like Susan G. Komen is having a big breast cancer gala. I would donate an hour consultation, and what would happen is, once you perform that consultation, I would say 70% of the time it turns into a client. And my
Mm.
thought process, honestly, was, if someone can afford to, come to an auction and spend, $15,000, for a table, and then bid on top of that, they actually have the income to.
They have a few
So
coins.
they do. So honestly, that's kind of how things happen. And so, so now we're at 2007, 2008. Um, I was just not satisfied with just being in Atlanta. I had this huge idea of, having an office in LA and New York, and like living this whole Sex in the City dream. And, um, I'll tell you the truth with this. I put an ad out on Craigslist in New York, Miami, and LA. And I said, wherever I get the most hits from, that is the city I'm going to pack up and go. So honestly, it was like Russian roulette.
Whoa.
Um,
And you're still talking about the ad for I will design the for
yeah,
free, but you okay. Whoa.
exactly. Exactly. And within, it was like maybe 5 hours, I had about 7 hits in New York, because everybody wants something free in New York. Um, but there was a company. It's so funny. All of these things were just starting off. WebMD had just kicked off their website, and they wanted me to design um, a rooftop gala that they were having. And so that was kind of like my cue to pack up things. And so I packed up, went to New York. I had a friend from college who let me crash on her sofa, and I ended up going. I'm like, if you're gonna be in New York, you need a job. So I ended up applying to work at the Container Store, because I said, just have something until clients begin to come in. And when I got to New York, I honestly crashed and burned. New York is a different beast, and it's, if you don't have like a reputable name in New York, you're just no one.
Mm.
And so I ended up having to work at the Container Store for about 2 years,
Whoa.
and it wasn't glamorous. Like I worked at the Container Store in the stock room. So I was like unloading trucks from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. in the morning, like in cold, freezing New York in the winter.
Wow.
Unloading huge merchandise, loads of containers of plastic, basically.
Yeah.
But in that at that job, I ended up meeting a lady by the name of Jillian Browder, who became my mentor, and she said, I heard you want to break into interior design, and I'm looking for an assistant. And so she introduced me to the world of show houses. And what she and I did were we were prop stylists. Other interior designers brought us in to stage and to, get them photo shoot ready. And so it just introduced me to, a whole new world of design where I'm going from these $5,000 budgets to, it could be a $50,000,
Sure.
bathroom that we're now, renovating. So it was just a world of a difference, and I learned so much from her.
I have to say, Mikel, this is so far a remarkable story. And the reality is what's really funny about it is that there's so much of your story that I'm familiar with that's remarkable. And we haven't gotten to that part yet. So I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, but you get it. The real rough part.
That's it. That's it. So, but I want to go back and just sort of, go back through it again with you because there's some good lessons in there. I mean, I don't know how valid Craigslist is 10 years later as a place to do this, and you may or may not have an opinion on that. But I just want to just say the grit there and the determination in order to get work. And the thing is, this is a dilemma that a lot of interior designers have expressed to me that they face, Mikel, is that in the beginning, they're doing a lot of work that they're not getting paid their value for. And I think, you tell me your opinion on it, I think that there's a difference between doing what you did, where you made a decision that you would work for free in order to do the work, as opposed to a designer that in the beginning of their career does work and then through the process of that project, because they're not so business savvy, ends up working mostly for free. But it wasn't a choice. It was a job that they either didn't understand the parameters of, or the client ran them over and they didn't stand back, and they end up in, a typical thing that I hear a designer say is, I thought this was going to take me 3 hours to do. So far, it's taking me 8 hours to do. I can't bill them anymore because I said to them this and I said to them that. And I get that I probably am part of the problem here, but I don't know what to do. And so it's a different, and it usually ends with, but I guess it'll be good for my portfolio. And I'm just suggesting that there's not a lot different in that physically putting a room together for free or not for free, but the difference is in the way you feel about it. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is I think people need to get over themselves. If you don't, like, seriously, if you don't have the portfolio, like, you have to shut up and you have to do it. There are a lot of things that I didn't want to necessarily have to do for free, even when I'm working, like, on television shows. I work in an industry, where currently I'm paid to work 5 days a week, but some days I have to work 7.
Right.
So it's like you have to put things into perspective. And if you look at it as I'm working for free, then that's what it's going to be. But if you're looking at it as a building block, and it has to be strategic. I'm not saying you should just go out and, do everything for free, but you need to be strategic in what you are willing to do. If it's going to benefit you at a later date. And I think, that's the biggest thing. To me, it's a PR, it's a marketing expense. And until you can afford to, have a publicist who's going to help you get those projects, you've got to do something. Mm-hmm. And so, again, I think you have to be selective in that. I really think designers need to get over themselves, right? And I think that's why I get a lot of opportunities, because I was willing to do things in the beginning that help propel me. Not saying that, that's something that I want to continue to practice where I will work for free. But honestly, as my story goes on, most of the things that I've gotten have stemmed from the fact that I went to someone and said, hey, can I apprentice under you? Can I learn from you? Can I do this pro bono? People are more apt to let you in. Once you get in, then they'll keep hiring you. But people need to get over.
Well, and I think, your advice is well said, and I just rephrase it a little bit. I think what happens, I'm going to make an assumption, is that when you're younger in your design business and you are out there and you're frustrated because a 2-hour fee turned into an 8-hour project and you're feeling taken advantage of, I think there is this feeling that I'm the only one that this is happening to, and I must be doing something wrong, and that's why it's happening to me. And it's really, Mikel, conversations like yours where people who know you, know your work, and can already look up to you and go, oh, okay, so it wasn't always easy for him, and it wasn't always, hey, I'm a popped out designer here and I'm getting $500 an hour. Aren't I amazing? So I think that's what's great. I think it's great that you're willing to share it. And I hear what you're saying, that you need to get over yourself. But the bigger thing that I want to point out is what you're saying is when you make a strategic decision. So you were saying, I'm going to do this room for free and it's going to contribute to my portfolio. I also love the idea of contributing to the charity events. It's funny because it came up in a Facebook group several months ago. And somebody was like, oh, something, I don't remember what it was, but somebody was poo-pooing it. And but the reality is that you're right. If you are working and swimming in the lane with $5,000 budget rooms, it is the people at the charity events. And one of the guests on the show over the past couple of years actually mentioned that as a valid networking thing as well. The combination of volunteering for the charity where your high-end client is, becoming useful to the charity as far as working on committees, and then volunteering your services when the donations come along. So I think that it's very smart. And I also, just like I said in the beginning of this, sometimes it's just headset. It's don't feel like I'm getting taken advantage of. I'm creating an opportunity for myself to get a portfolio shot. And that was my other question connected with that. Because you have the marketing background and you were consciously trading your time for experience and work, it doesn't sound like you had the ability financially at that point to then professionally photograph those shots. Were you just taking the pictures with the best you could to your ability so that you would have something to show the next client?
Yes. I mean, I think for me, it was just tapping into my resources. And for me at that point, I had a friend who was breaking out into photography, and he honestly came and shot the space for like $150. My spaces for like $150. Like, okay. I didn't have much of anything. At that point, honestly, I was couch surfing, staying with a friend, and I can't even really say couch surfing. Couch surfing makes it sound pretty. I had a friend who let me stay in his 300 square foot apartment in Harlem, with mice and roaches and all other types of things. And, we stayed in that tiny apartment with my dog, of all things. Like, it was just too many of us in this tiny apartment. But I think, with donating, I just think you really have to be strategic. Just as a designer in general. Like, I look at when I did my first show house. Show houses are a great way to showcase your talent. But what most people don't know is you're going to come out of about $10,000 to $15,000 of your own money.
Yes.
And just to participate in this, and sometimes there's no payoff. Right. You don't know. It's a risk and a gamble. And I think that's no different when you're trying to build a portfolio and you don't have on paper, or not even paper, portfolio-wise, you could be a great designer, but there are so many other great designers, especially in New York alone. But if you don't have those spaces, sometimes you do kind of have to take a back seat and say, you know what, I'm going to take this project on because I know in the end this is going to get me to where I need to be, and I can look back on this and, it'll be a great story. And so that's honestly the way I look at it.
I like it. And also with your friend who was a photographer, he was basically doing the same thing you were doing. He was investing in,
Exactly.
yes, exactly. So it was a win-win for all three of you, really, the client, yourself, and your friend, the photographer.
Exactly.
Okay, so now you know, New York wins because they have the most responses on Craigslist. Nothing like Russian roulette
Yes.
with your life and career.
Exactly. Exactly.
When you come here, so now you're here, you do the WebND design rooftop, you meet your friend, you meet this mentor, Julian Browder, and what happens with when it starts to become the set designing? Is this another opportunity that you see and you play out in your mind the strategy of it? Is it a whim? Is it on purpose? Tell us about getting into set design.
All right, so set design. So in order to tell you about set design, I have to tell you about when I left the Container Store.
Okay.
So I am at the Container Store, and I end up, working with some developers in Williamsburg, and I'm remodeling, these model homes, and it's great. And I end up quitting the job because I felt like I was financially stable enough where I didn't have to work at the Container Store anymore. And after my fourth project, my contract got terminated. And I almost went into a state of depression for like 3 months because now, like, I don't have, like a job. I quit the Container Store, and it's just like, well, what do you do? And now it's like ground zero. And I ended up having to go work for CB2, which is a division of Crate and Barrel. And while I worked at Crate and Barrel, I was on the sales floor, and I was just frustrated again because, like I told you, I'm not a great salesperson. And it must have been my second year at Crate and Barrel. I'm on the sales floor, and there's a gentleman who comes in, and he has about 8 people who come in the store behind him, and they're all grabbing pillows and vases, and everybody's just throwing things up on the counter. And so I'm like, okay, how do I figure out what he does, because I need to be doing that so I can get from behind this counter, this cash wrap. So I stopped the gentleman, and I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a set designer. I work for the show Dexter on Showtime, and I'm based out of LA. We're just here in New York shooting a scene. And, I said, well, I would love to, learn what you do. And he's like, well, if you ever come to LA, I will let you, come in, PA is what they call it, PA for the day. So I'm crazy. So I go to my store manager, and I'm like, listen, this guy is going to let me work for him. I need to transfer to the LA store so that I can go out there and like make a name for myself in television. So a month later, my boss made the transfer.
Wow.
And it's just so funny how life happens. I ended up having a coworker who had lived in Atlanta and had moved back home to LA. So she let me stay with she and her family on their couch bed. They were empty nesters, so they let me use their extra car. And I was working at CB2, again, making about $11 an hour, driving a big gas guzzling Suburban. And I had to put all my money into gas because it was so expensive. But the first week I'm at CB2, I'm calling the guy. He never picks up the phone at all.
I was just going to ask you, did you call him and confirm it before you moved? Or did you...
I did. Oh, I had set it up, but he responded, but when I got there, he never picked up the phone. But it's okay. Actually, I'm glad he didn't.
Wait, so he never did? He never does?
He never picked up the phone. He never picked up the phone. So I've come all the way from New York to L.A. Really didn't even have the money. Like a coworker of mine bought the plane ticket for me to get to L.A. And when I get there, like I said, he doesn't pick up the phone. But I made it a point. I said, you know what? I'm here for a reason, and I am going to speak to anyone who looks like they are in the store shopping for someone other than themselves.
Wow.
So anybody who had a portfolio or a folder of any sort, I would stop and I would ask, what you do, what do you do for a living? And, can I shadow you for a day? And within that first week, I got a project with Teen Vogue magazine doing pop-up shops where they would do little pop-ups in different malls in the Los Angeles area. Again, using these as examples of how I build a portfolio, because now I'm getting set design experience. Or merchandising. Like I'm designing stores at this point. Again, doing it pro bono, but I have that backing of I can say now I've done projects for Teen Vogue. The very next week, there was a gentleman, same situation. He's returning 30 pillows, and I'm like, okay, he's a designer. He does something. Nobody returns 30 pillows at one time. So the guy ends up, his name is Orlando Soria. He's a designer. And Orlando ended up hiring me as a PA on a show called Secrets of a Stylist, and it was Emily Henderson, who's a huge designer now. She has a line at Target. She won HGTV Design Star, and she had just won her show. And so I worked with her for about 3 months, and it wasn't like a glamorous job. Again, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm paid in my meals, and they pay me for like gas reimbursement, but I was working for free. My job was to drive around in a U-Haul van with this guy named Eddie, and we would pick up all of the furniture that she would use in her episodes. And I'm talking about like we would unload things at a U-Haul facility. Wow. And so I'm like hopping out of a truck and loading a truck, and he's trying to show me how to tie Boy Scout knots so that this furniture doesn't slide in the truck. And so, but in that moment, I was learning about television and how to design for television. And, it was one of those things that I did not take for granted. Yes, I did not get paid for it, but what I did get paid in was the value of, of learning television.
Wow.
And so I did that for about 3 months. And during my third month, obviously I'm still looking for lucrative pay. And I was still applying for, at this point now I'm applying for set design jobs, because I feel like, one thing I learned was fake it till you make it. And I really believe if you have confidence and you can go in there, you can sell yourself, and thank God I have a marketing degree. I can sell myself in that manner. Just don't ask me to sell furniture.
Well, it's funny. I have to say, you've said 3 or 4 times you're not a good salesperson, and I actually wrote down while you're talking, he's full of crap. He's an excellent salesperson. I'm like, well, I had to call him out on this.
I don't like to sell it. I'd rather sell myself. But, it's just one of those funny things. I ended up getting a call back from the Style Network. Now, this was the scary part. So they're like, hey, we are in New York. Can you come in for an interview in 2 days for a set design job, to be a set decorator? Now, I haven't been a set decorator, but in my head, I'm like, you know what? If you give me an hour and Google, I can figure it out.
That's it.
So I, again, didn't have the resources to buy a plane ticket. I called my coworker, and I said, listen, I know I've only been here for 3 months, but I have an interview back in New York, and I promise you, if you get me another plane ticket back to New York, I will get the job, and I will pay you back. And so she laughed at me. She bought the plane ticket to come back. Wow. I ended up getting the job with the Style Network to work on Jerseylicious. And that was a different experience. I was thrown into, like, honestly, I was like thrown to the wolves. I will never forget my first project was to design what they call interview sets. So that's when you're watching a reality show and you see all of the foreground and someone's just sitting in a chair talking. Well, I'm designing this set and I feel confident in everything that I picked. And so I set it up, and then the director, he's like, okay, well, what else do you have? And that's different because in interior design, typically whatever you set that's kind of it.
Right.
In television, you have to have options because the director might not like the chair that the person is sitting in, or you need another pillow to boost the person up, or maybe these flowers that you have just aren't working with camera. So I learned in that moment, you always have to be ready. But I worked on that show for a year. And when we got finished with the show. Oh, let me just talk about that show first so that people can really understand what I went through. So
you're not going to talk bad about Jersey now, are you?
Oh, no.
I'm kidding.
Not at all. Not at all. But while I was on the show, I mean, I'm not afraid to disclose what I was making at the time. I was making $700 a week.
Wow.
And for me, coming from someone who was making $11 an hour, $700 a week was consistent money. And in television, you get paid every Friday, so it's lovely. But you needed to have a car because the job was in New Jersey.
Okay.
So I told the producers, like, yes, I have a car. I would have to rent a car from JFK. I live in Harlem. So to go from Harlem to JFK on the train, because I can't afford a taxi at this point, that would take me about an hour and a half. And I had to rent that car every week, and I could only rent it weekly because that's all I could afford, because every Friday when I get paid, I would rent a new car. But I was renting that car for about $300 a week.
Oh,
so to be honest, I was only bringing home about $400 minus tax, a week. But it was one of those things I felt like I needed to do. It's one of those things we've all fudged on our resume at some point about some experience that you have, whether it's, I'm the best at Photoshop, so you don't even really know how to do Photoshop. But one of those things, like, I promised them I have a car, and it's like I had to live up to this, what I promised. But they ended up finding out that I didn't have a car, so they gave me a production car at that point. But I say that to say that I was really hungry for it. And I think if you're hungry enough for it, because I really think right now we're just in a day and age where people want everything quick, they want it fast. And I'm of the old school, like, you work hard and stop looking at things as, I'm giving this away. And it's like, you're not giving anything away. You're gaining so much more. So I worked on the show for a year, learned as much as I could in set design. And at the end of the show, at the end of the season, I should say, my executive producer, she comes to me and she says, I want to bring you back next season, but that there's like a 3-month period that we have off. And she says, I'm afraid that you are going to go and work on another show if I don't keep you. So she said, I want you to work in accounting because I know you have a business degree.
Wow.
So I worked in accounting for 3 months in production, and it was actually the best thing that I could have ever done, because then I learned how much everyone made, so I knew what to do. I came back the next season. So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like, no, I need a little raise this time.
Yeah, exactly. I saw everything. It was like, ooh, I also saw, well, maybe I don't want to be in front of the camera. I need to be behind the camera because that's where the real money is. But I learned the business aspect of, television and how to negotiate rates. And so from there, we came back that second season. And when we came back for the second season of Jerseylicious, a coworker came up to me and he said, you know what? I was on Craigslist, and here's Craigslist again. He says there was a casting call for this show called Design Star, HGTV Design Star. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of that show. I love it. And he said, well, they're auditioning in New York. So that is when I decided, you know what? Let's just chance it. And, they're asking you for headshots, and I don't have headshots. So me and my roommate, and I use roommate loosely because he was still letting me sleep on his sofa at this time.
Your landlord, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Your benefactor, actually.
Yeah, exactly. My sponsor at this point. We go outside on the stoop in Harlem, and we're taking photos, and this is before the day of Instagram where you can really doctor a photo up. So we had to take photos and go on Photoshop and clean them up. And so we're making headshots. They actually turned out really nicely. But we created headshots on the stoop in Harlem. And I packed up my portfolio and went down to that HGTV Design Star audition. And that was nerve-wracking.
I can imagine. Although everything you did, every single step of the way, it is the nice epitome, the nice expression of act as if. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a fine line in act as if, and it's a tough thing to express to somebody, because if somebody doesn't have the inner fortitude to act as if, and you want to give them some passion, you want to give them some encouragement and some confidence to act as if, it's sometimes tough to describe. Well, don't act as if you actually know everything, because that's absurd, and that you're going to be, found out as a fraud. But so it's hard to know the line when you're trying to give encouragement to someone else. But in your own self, in your own head, you sort of do know the line. It's like when you described when you went from running around in LA and picking up all of the furniture to be delivered to the sets. And then it was like, well, am I set director? Well, Google in an hour and I'll figure it out. It's like you had a sprinkling of information, you had enough experience and expertise there, and to then just, push it through the other. And it's the same thing with this. Now you get to this interview for Design Star, and on one hand, you're saying how frightened you were, but on the other hand, I keep marveling at how each new challenge each door, each opportunity, each challenge that you create in your life, you kind of just push through and do it through the fear. It's really, really remarkable. So what happens? So you go in there and you're like, oh my God, is there 19,000 designers there? What is happening?
So I get to the audition. It's like on the Upper East Side, somewhere in like the 70s, and
can't get much shishier than that, right? Just start with intimidation there.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay, there'll be maybe 100 people outside. I get to the audition, and this audition there were about, I would say, 2.5 blocks of people lined up to audition. It was in a restaurant, and it was, oh my gosh, there were just like hundreds of thousands of us out there trying to audition, because the thing is, it wasn't just New York, it was the New York area. So, if you lived in, let's say,
Philly or somewhere, exactly. You're coming in for it.
People are coming in from people from Canada, people are coming from all over.
Whoa.
And so I get inside of the audition, and the casting agent is like, basically on a bullhorn, hollering at us saying, listen, there's so many of you, you are only going to have 2 minutes with the casting producer. If they like you, they're going to ask you to come back. If not, try again next year. Whoa. So I'm nervous, there's so many people in line, and everybody has their portfolios, and everybody's talking about, I've graduated from this design school and I've done this and that. And I'm just like, okay, well, you can do this. So I go in, and it's my turn. So I go to sit down. They take you in groups of 10 or so, or maybe about 10 people, and they're like 10 casting agents, and everybody is filtered to a different one. And so the casting director is flipping through my portfolio. She's seeing all of this television work that I've done now, because keep in mind, at this point now, I've got that Teen Vogue project that I did for free. I've got the HGTV project that I did for free. Now I've got the Jersey Licious set design, as well as the projects that I've done with my residential, where I donated my service for those special event auctions.
Wow.
So she's looking at this breadth of work that, I've put together, and she says to me, this is great. What I'm looking at is amazing. I've seen so many designers, but she said, what I'm looking at is the fact that you have a business degree and you didn't go to design school. And she says, how are you going to make that work on this competition? And I told her, I said, that is the one thing that I am most proud of. I said, of all the people that you're going to see today, you're not going to find anyone else who's done residential, commercial, and is a set decorator on a television show, that's syndicated, that comes out every week. And she says, you know what? I like your confidence, and I want to see you tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness.
And honestly, that's how it kind of started. So the audition process, they're calling you back every couple of weeks. And in that moment, I'm all about, I laughed about giving me a Google in an hour. So one of the things that I knew was that if I'm going to be on television, you need to know how to host. So I flew myself to LA, and I took hosting classes.
No way.
Yeah. there's a teacher, her name is Marky Costello, and her grandfather was like from Abbott and Costello, and she does like all the big time celebrities from, from the Kardashians on. If you've been on television, more than likely she has coached you. And I went to her boot camp, and I studied under her for about 2 months. And I just really learned the art of how to deliver a message on camera, how to speak in front of a green screen, use a teleprompter, and just how to interact when I'm on a panel. And that helped me a lot, because when I got to Design Star, that was one of my saving graces, that I went to hosting class and the rest of the competitors hadn't. So if you give me a line, I can read it. Just tell me what you want me to say. I can make things up on the whim. I'm ready. Wow. But again, it was always preparing myself. Like,
right.
If I'm going to take something, if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to research it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I would say, give me Google in an hour. And what that really just means is, if I don't know how to do something, I'm going. And I think and I bring that up especially like as someone who's a self-taught designer. I didn't. I was self-taught, so I had to go work under other designers who were designing these designer show houses. So I understand how to, maneuver through the D&D building and, these other high-end showrooms, because there's an art to it. You have to learn that. And so my job was just always to research, because, it's very difficult when you're a self-taught designer, especially in New York, because you have so many people who are like, oh, I design for this person and that person. Well, my thing is, I actually laugh, because now most of the time I'm like, well, I've designed for, people of the same caliber, if not higher, and I also get to do it on a television platform. And so for me, it's a huge win for me. It's like the underdog has yet won.
It's amazing story, actually. I mean, I'm just sitting here just really like with my mouth open, and I keep thinking, oh, that's the most amazing thing. And another thing happens, and another opportunity, another thing that you seize. It's really something, Mikel. And I have one question in there. It sounds like to me, by the time you get to the interview for Design Star, that, like you said, you had the Teen Vogue, you had the Jerseylicious, you had different things happening, but it doesn't sound like there was a lot of paid work at that point, that most of the work was work that you figured out a way to, give it away like on Craigslist, or exchange it for a gift at a charity auction, or volunteer to be basically an intern, the PA that you mentioned, the title called PA. But at that point, there wasn't your body of work, most of it was not paid design work. Is that correct?
Well, that would be correct.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
The main thing is, I didn't look at it like that.
No, I know you didn't. I know you didn't.
It's a complete investment into my brand is what that was.
Well, and the thing is, that's why I wanted to just make sure that was reiterated, because, somebody else could have the same confidence and moxie and some of those same experiences, but a whole lot less of them. There would have, it's a lesson for somebody who thinks, okay, that's the line in the sand. Enough with the free work. I'm only going to work for pay now. But, we understood that you were at the Container Store in New York for almost 2 years, and then you were at CB2, it sounded like, for 2 years. So you have done a lot of what, we call the side hustle here. And that's a pretty remarkable thing to have stayed with it for that long. And the chances that you've taken, okay, so I'm going to move to LA because this guy's going to let me work for free under him. Okay, I'm going to move back to New York because there's an audition for a show. And then also you must be a really good friend, because your friends have and I don't mean it I mean it for real, because people don't do that. People don't let you sleep on their sofa for weeks or months at a time. People don't buy your plane tickets, not once, but twice, unless you're a deserving, honest to goodness, caring friend back. I mean, there's a lot happening here in what you're talking about. I'm seeing so many layers of, your mama is something else. That's all I'm saying. She should be giving classes on raising kids.
She and my dad, they did an excellent job. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of my friends allow me these opportunities because so many people move to New York and LA and all, and so many other cities with a hope and a dream. But I put the passion behind it,
Hmm.
and they saw me, working 14, 15, 16 hours a day, and I was putting the action behind it. So they were happy to assist me because they saw, he is really out here trying to make this happen, and he's determined.
Right. It's not a
Um,
handout. You're not like, oh, nothing's happening for me. Can I just, have this? It's like you were working as hard, and these were just little
oh yeah,
nudges that you needed to help and facilitate the hard work you were putting in.
exactly,
You were a good
exactly.
investment, is basically.
Well, no, I appreciate it. I have a lot of people. It takes a village and it takes a community and a team.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. Like everybody thinks, like it's so easy. It happens overnight. It is ongoing, still evolving. Like I feel like if you come back to me in 5 years from now, I'll talk about my experiences that I'm having right now.
Oh, I
That
can imagine. Yeah.
it, it's a different level, but there's
Right.
still challenges even at this level. Even once you get on television, there's a different set of challenges.
Yes. And you're adorable on television, by the way. I don't know. I would imagine that most of our colleagues listening are exactly familiar with who you are and have seen you on television. But the camera loves you. You're very
Oh,
charming
thank
and you are very easy breezy and you're very good at it. And is that, it has to, a lot of that has to be your innate personality. But I think it's very interesting that you also went to a class to learn how to be a host on television. I never ever imagined that there was a class like that.
Yes, you know what? And again, that's just doing the homework. And I have to give my parents credit too. So I did have a little head start, if you will, but it was one of those things I didn't realize. So my mother was actually a journalist, an on-camera journalist in Detroit, Michigan, where I'm from. And so
Oh,
she did the traffic and weather every morning on the radio show that we had locally in Detroit. And she also had a television show. So I'm
excellent.
sure I picked up on some of that,
Right.
as a kid. I didn't know it, and my father was a disc jockey on the radio station as well. So it was kind of one of those things where when I look back on it, it made sense.
Yes, it was sort of
But
like,
I
wait a minute, it's in my blood.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, my mother, she'll laugh about it now, but when I was going to this, when I was attending the hosting classes, my mom is like, "Listen, I've worked in this industry, for 30 years. I'm trying to tell you, you have it, but you don't want to hear that from your mother.
She's
You
like,
need
wait a
somebody
minute, you're
to real,
paying for that. I already am a professional and can
yeah."
recognize that you have it. And what you don't have, come ask me, I'll tell you, right?
Exactly. And I'm like, no, this is not good enough. You're local. Like, you do the Detroit local stuff. I need somebody in LA to, like, tell me the same thing that you end up just telling me. But so, but that helps coach me along. So, with Design Star, I get cast for the show. I ended up coming in fourth place on the show, which I was extremely happy with
That's an
because my whole thing.
accomplishment. Yeah.
Oh God! I mean, my main thing was working in television. I knew, watching shows like American Idol, like Jennifer Hudson. You don't have to win. Like,
You
you
don't have
can
to
still
win.
be.
Right. Yep.
And so that was my thing, is just to stay as relevant as possible. And after I came off of Design Star, my producer from Jersey Licious gives me a call back, and she says, "Hey, I know you didn't win the show, but I want to offer you your job back because everyone else that we've hired just doesn't have the same tenacity that you have, and they just can't do it." And so she says, but we're taking on a new show. And she said, there's a comedian named Steve Harvey who we're going to be working with, and it's going to require you to move to Chicago. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love New York. I'm on television now, and I don't want to pack up and go to Chicago. I'm like, I just don't want to do it. But I ended up packing things up, moving to Chicago, and my very first day that I arrived in the studio, Steve Harvey's business partner pulls me to the side and he says, "Hey, I saw you on HGTV Design Star, which, by the way, I just like to point out, was not a paid program, so you did not get paid to go on these TV shows. So, again, this is investing in your brand.
That's it.
So he says, I saw you on the show, and I remember you. And he's like, you put that horrible green paint on the walls, and they send you home. And I'm like, really? Like, this is what you want to talk about in front of 20 other people? Like, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And so he's like, well, I want you to come and meet me. It was horrible. Like, we had, like,
I just love you. Like, really? This is what you want to talk about?
Yes, this is like, we're like this big, we're like, you got to imagine, we're in a boardroom meeting. Yeah. There are like all the new producers, like everybody's like introducing themselves, talking about new concepts. And he's just like, I've been looking across this room trying to like figure out who you are. And I know you're the guy who got sent home. And everybody's kind of looking at me like, okay, like, okay, God. He's horrible. And so it was just embarrassing at that moment. However, he says to me, I want you to come see me after the meeting. So he marches me into the room with Steve Harvey. And he says, hey, you know, I want you to meet Steve Harvey. He's going to take Family Feud this week. And when he comes back, we would like for you to have designed his office. Wow. So I'm just like, okay, you know what? This is why God sent me to Chicago. I just need to design this office, and then I can go back to New York, because I really do not want to.
I can write my ticket back.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, this is why I'm supposed to be here. So
I can buy my own plane ticket this time, too.
Yeah, exactly. Now I can afford to buy my own plane ticket because I'm working. So I designed the space. And Steve Harvey, you know, I had to meet him at 5 o'clock in the morning before he started his radio show. And he asked his whole entourage, like his bodyguards, his assistant, he told everyone to wait outside of the room. And he just wanted the two of us to come into the space so that I could walk him through what I did. So I walked through Steve Harvey through his office, and he's just like, his mouth is dropped at this point. And he's like, I don't know how you designed this space within a week. I didn't give you any direction. His only direction was to make the space look masculine and smoky. That's all he said.
Whoa.
And he said, you know, you captured who I was within a week. And I know that was extremely hard. And something came over me in that moment. And I said, you know what? Something's telling me to tell you I don't want to work for you.
What?
And in that moment, yes. And in that moment, I promise you that was not me talking. It was an outer-body experience. Now, after I said those words, then it was me. But it was just like something came over me, and I'm like, oh, my God, what the heck did I just say to Steve Harvey? And he said, excuse me? And I said, listen, what I'm trying to say is I'm not enamored by who you are. You know, honestly, I am an interior designer. I kind of fell into set design, and I don't want to work behind the scenes. I want to be on television. I want my own television show. And he says, you know what, young man, no one has ever spoke to me like that before, but because you had, I'm gonna use a nice word for the podcast. But he said, but because you had the courage to say that, I'm going to put you on television. And the very first episode next week, that following week, was for me to give a walkthrough of his office.
Oh my goodness! It's amazing.
I mean, and Luann, it's so crazy. Like, that's why all of these things, I don't want to say they just happened, but it was like preparation. It was like all of these things that I had kind of prepared for along the way, and I didn't know.
Well, I say that all the time, Mikel, on the show, that you prepare so that you can get lucky. That's the thing. Yeah. You do all the due diligence all along your life, whether it's from when you're a child and going to school and being your job as a student and as an athlete and as a musician, whatever your jobs are as children, going through to your college and your careers after that. You have to do everything to the best that you can do it, so that one day it'll look like you were lucky. You know, it'll just feel like you were lucky. But because you had worked so hard to get where you were, and you had done so many things that positioned you so well for the next opportunity, when this came, like you said, you just knew that, okay, this is great and that's awesome, and you're Steve Harvey and all of that is really something else. But I'm supposed to be in front of that camera, and I know it. That's amazing. I love
Yeah, it was very amazing. It worked out, but it could have went really south.
Well, but the thing is, it sounded like you were prepared for it to go. That's the whole point of that moment. You see, that is the crux of that moment. You weren't doing to bluff it out. You weren't doing it as a negotiation. You were doing it is because it was real for you. And if he had said, whatever, dude, pack it up and get out of here, then you would have, and you would have said, okay, next opportunity. Well, I'm waiting for it. Let's see if I can create it.
Exactly.
That is the power of the best negotiation is when you really are very clear on what you want. Because then when you ask for it, if you get it, it's a win. And if you don't get it, it doesn't matter because you knew what you wanted. I love it. I love it. Oh, my goodness. I love it. And I have to say,
it sounds like a Lifetime drama movie right now.
It does. It totally does. It's like it is.
God,
we have to get all these TV connections of yours to make a movie of your life.
I know, right?
It's something else. And I have to just say, like, I just have to geek out a little bit. I love Steve Harvey. I just think he is a riot. I look at his face, I laugh. Every show he does, Family Feud, that kid show he had. I mean, his talk show.
He is a great guy. I just think about all of the opportunities that he's given me. And a lot of them, I know, like, I will be the first to say, I annoyed Steve Harvey every chance I got. I remember once I wanted to do design seminars, and so I'm like, I don't have a way to, promote the seminar. So I would knock on his office, like as soon as he comes off of the stage, I'm like, we call him Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey, can you promote my design seminars? And he's like, oh my gosh, Mikel, if you ask me to do one more thing every day, I needed him to do something. He would complain about it, but he would do it. But no, he's a very, very genuine person. And, I will never forget one of the things I asked him, Open House NYC, they film kind of like Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous, style where they do the tours of the home on NBC. And so they contacted me. And what's so funny? I got that contact because of my coworker from Jersey Licious ended up being a producer. And it's just like how life just brings us up around. He's like, hey, I saw your episode on Steve Harvey. Can we come out and shoot with you? I asked Steve Harvey, it was like 3 months in advance, if I could do it. And then the day of, he totally forget. And I'm like, can you do this? And he's like getting ready to fly out of the country on vacation. And he stopped what he was doing. And he's like, you know what? I would not do this for anyone else because he's not getting paid to go on camera. So he's like, because it's for you and your brand, I will do it.
Isn't that something?
I'm a huge fan of Steve Harvey. Anything I've ever asked him for career-wise, if it's within reason. Actually, even if it's not within reason.
Well, and I love hearing that because we all have people that we like and we admire from afar for their body of work. And it's always nice when you find out through, firsthand interaction or other people like yourself that the person that you imagine to be the person is the person. It's pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah.
And the one thing he told me, he said, the reason I support your brand, he said, so many people want to work for me because I am Steve Harvey and they just want to be under my spotlight. But you made that very clear that that's not what you want. And he said, people ask me for money. He said, you've never asked me for money. You only asked me, for a platform. And so he said, I have to commend someone who basically pulls themselves up from their bootstraps and takes a small opportunity. Because he told me before, I left the show, he said, look at what you've done. You've taken one remodel of a room into being the voice of design for our show.
Wow.
And I hired a publicist and he's just like, you've done all of these things off of one little small thing that you were given. And he said, yes, you've used my name, but you've done all the work. He said, I just stand there. So that's a lot of the reason why, Steve Harvey helped me because I kind of helped myself.
Right. Well, he respects you. It's what I'm hearing. He respects. It's the same as all the other situations. It's the same as your friend giving you the money for the plane ticket and the other friend letting you stay on the sofa because they respect your work ethic and they know that you're a good investment. I mean, I'm saying it. It's like it's as if you were a racehorse or something, but it's the truth. I mean, you're somebody that it's very clear that you not only work hard but you work smart. You see, it's not always about working hard. It's working smart. And that's what you've done. And you've really, even just there, you just mentioned how once you started working with him and you were the on-camera designer, that you hired a publicist so that you parlayed that. You continued to prepare to get lucky. Who knows if you keep, putting this out there, what else will come from it? And of course, here we are these couple of years later and other things have come from it. It's really, really something. I love it. And it had to be a gas working with him. I'm sure. I mean, look, he's a real person and has tough days, but I have this secret desire to be a game show host. So I'm like,
It's so funny. Steve Harvey is so opposite of what you see in terms of personality.
Really?
When that camera is off, he's very quiet.
Oh, isn't that something?
And he speaks very low. So it's interesting. He's still funny, but he's not a very loud person. He doesn't like confrontation.
Oh, so maybe I won't make it as a game show host because I'm even actually on the show. On the podcast, I'm the quietest if I am my whole day.
Different folks are different folks, but yeah, he's very quiet. When you get him like off of that stage, he's so the opposite.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So one more thing I would love for you to just talk about before I let you go. I'm taking a lot of your time, but one of the things is that you now are and I know there's story in between what just happened and where we're going to go, but bring us right to what you're doing now. You are a brand ambassador for Inspired Closets. Tell us what that is, what that means. And, this is one of the reasons I have to say to all of my listeners, this sound is probably just not quite as good as our sound usually is on the show, but you are in Idaho in the middle of a hotel room and I'm in the middle of a snowstorm in New Jersey, but I wasn't passing up the opportunity to have you on the show. But tell us about Inspired Closets and what your new opportunity is that you're doing there, Mikel.
Sure. So Inspired Closets, they are a retailer that sells custom closets as well as like custom pantries and offices. They basically do it all. Well, with Inspired Closets, I have a contract to first remodel 42 store locations. So I am in a different city every week. I'm in Boise, Idaho this week. Last week it was Alaska. The week before it was Hawaii. So every week I'm going to a new city. And then on top of that, I'm a brand ambassador for the brand. So Inspired Closets partnered up with HGTV for their Big Dream Home that they did in January. And so with me being a part of HGTV, I'm now a spokesperson for the brand. And I've become a brand ambassador for Inspired Closets. So they'll send me to, various store locations to, give a talk on design and speak to, other interior designers just about the brand and what we do. So that project, I've been working on since July. And I'm going to tell you a very funny story about Inspired Closets. So the Steve Harvey show actually relocated from Chicago to Los Angeles, and they changed format where it's now, mostly just a comedy show. Well, at that point, I decided to break off because I'm not a comedian. So my creative director from the Steve Harvey show, she called me and said, hey, I have a gig that I can't, go to. Would you mind coming to stage or do a commercial shoots for this company called Inspired Closets? And that one commercial shoot turned into me designing 42 stores and becoming a brand ambassador. So
my goodness,
my life is
it's amazing.
It sounds like it's peachy, but it's like I just take these risks and these leaps and they just kind of happen. It just happens.
It's
I can't just.
Well,
I
it's
can't
what you
describe
said. You're willing to take the risk and the leap, and you always do the hard work in between. It's like it's almost like you see the risk, you have to make the leap, but before you take that leap, you're there, whether it's in a boot camp for hosting classes, or it's Googling this, or it's researching that. It's you're taking the leap with half or three quarters of what you need in order to be sure that you stick the landing, but you don't worry about not having the 100%. You get as much information as you can and you do it. I am in awe. I love your story. I definitely think they should make a movie out of you.
Luann, this is my thing. The way I approach my career is I don't like to live in the what if.
Mm-hmm.
I am a firm believer in wherever you are at in life, you can always come back to it. What you cannot come back to are missed opportunities. So I am willing to take that leap because, if something doesn't go right, I can always go back to what I was doing before.
Mm.
But what you don't get those missed opportunities, like those opportunities that come about where if you don't pounce on it, like those one in a lifetime opportunities, you have to be willing to take those risks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big risk taker. And I think, most designers, we're risk takers in general. It's just, when it comes time to think about our business, and our nest egg, that's a scary thing. And, I will say I do have a slight advantage over the fact that, I don't have a spouse. I don't have kids. And so I can pack up and I can
Right.
go
It gives you a little bit more flexibility. Absolutely.
Yeah. So and I don't take that for granted because I do recognize that. But I also say, I took advantage of a lot of these opportunities at a younger age,
Right.
When people, I think I do a lot of things that most people wouldn't feel comfortable with.
I definitely, yes, crisscrossing the country, putting a Craigslist ad in and seeing who answers the most.
Yeah, it's tough. And try managing this I still have my residential clients and, so even now, it's very difficult trying to balance, the residential clients, the commercial clients. I also work with Booking.com, and I stage several of the Booking.com, when there are a lot of Airbnbs that are out now, and I stage a lot of Airbnbs for Booking.com, and so I have that set design in me and interior design. It's that combination of both. It keeps me so busy. But you got to be willing to, seize these opportunities and not be afraid to take the risk. Mm-hmm. And that's really what's gotten me thus far.
It's amazing.
But it's not. Yeah, but I mean it's high risk. And I even think for designers, everything is a risk. Paying for a publicist is a risk. You don't know what you're going to get out of that. Right. And publicity is not cheap. That can range anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 a month.
Right.
I will be very honest and say that what I pay in PR right now is twice as much as I would pay in rent.
Right.
So it's not an easy thing.
Well, it's another. It sounds like it's another calculated strategy, another calculated risk on your part. It's almost like when you would do a room for no design fee in order to get your portfolio beefier. Now you are investing more in PR than you are in the place that you live, but you're doing it because it's going to bring you to the next level. And it's to your point. You said at one point in your conversation a few moments ago that in 5 years from now, if we talk to you, it will be a different set of risks, a different set of challenges, a different set of things that needed to be prepared to be lucky for. They might be at a higher level, but it's going to be a repeat of that same process of creating an opportunity, evaluating the risk and the ROI on it, and jumping and leaping towards it or not. And it doesn't matter if it was when you were with absolutely no money and no paid work, or you're going to be at the level that you're at now with brand ambassadorships and TV shows and, everything else. You just expressed this is still a risk, although I'm just going to say it's Andrew Joseph PR. Let's be real. That's not much of a risk, yeah. Mikel. We all know he's got a crack team over there. But no, I'm joking only to give Andrew the plug because I adore him and his team, and I do know that they do a great job. But for you, it's real. You are calculating, and when you say it in terms like that you're spending as much or more there than you are in your rent, that makes it very real to any of us listening that think that it's just easy. Oh, well, I'm Mikel Welch now and I have a publicist. It's still a calculated business decision on your part. And that is also the theme of everything that you've said, is that you not only started out with a degree in business, but has been the thread all the way through that marketing know-how, that marketing sense, always evaluating things from a strategic standpoint on what, if I do this work for free, if I do this internship, if I trail this person, if I shadow this person, what will it get me? As opposed to, oh my goodness, that's just so amazing because that person's famous and I'll just do this for that person. Oh, it's a famous show house, I'll just do it. So I love that you have worked so hard and that it's paying off, but you have, as I said, you have worked smart, not just hard. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, awesome. So we're definitely going to have you back in a couple of years and just see what kind of things you have gone on to create, because it's clear that you're not done, that you're still achieving and striving and you're driven, and it's a really cool story. And it's funny, I noticed on Instagram a couple of weeks ago that you were in Hawaii, and foolishly I thought you were vacationing.
It was a bifold experience. I was working for Inspired Closets for 7 days, and then the last 4 days, I have this thing with my parents where, because they took such good care of me, I take them on a trip every year.
Oh, so isn't that awesome?
And we had a great time in Honolulu. So
nice.
It was a great time.
Very nice. I love it. That's a good kid. I told you your parents raised you well. I knew it. I've said that to my kids all along when they were kids growing up. And, who needs another dress for another, sweet 16 party and another this and another that. And I go, someday you are going to keep me in a very nice lifestyle. That's all I'm telling you.
Exactly.
And I'm going to collect, I told them.
It's old.
That's it. Well, Mikel, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. I loved you from the moment that we met last spring at Ethan Allen, but it's been really fun getting to know all about your life and the hard work that you do and the smart work that you do. And I'm so grateful that you shared, like you said, I'm going to tell you the truth, because the truth is what helps each of us listening to be able to relate it to our own lives and to be able to take a lesson and a nugget and something that you've said and say, maybe that's my chance, my opportunity there, just like Mikel's. Or if I have to ask a friend for a little bit of help, maybe it's okay because I'm going to make something of that opportunity and that favor that friend does for me. So I really do thank you so much for sharing everything and for being real about it.
Not a problem. No, I hopefully my story will encourage someone else to take that leap. So leap on, people.
Leap on, people. I love it. Oh, thanks, Mikel. Bye.
Thank you.
He's pretty amazing, isn't he? I mean, talk about knowing your why. Talk about staying focused on your goals, and talk about knowing it so clearly that you look at Steve Harvey in the eye and you say, thanks so much, but I'd rather not be your set designer. I'm supposed to be on camera too. I mean, I love it. I mean, and seriously, like, is this the first show that I laughed so hard that I snorted on it? I mean, did you catch that? He cracked me up. But you know what happened, right? He was prepared to be lucky. He had done the hard work. He did everything he had to do to get him where he wanted to be. And when he could see it, he would not accept less. He was prepared to move on from the Steve Harvey position because he knew what was meant for him. And that's a key thing. He wasn't intending to negotiate, right? Like he said, it came out. But that is a key tip in negotiation. First of all, don't ever say no to something that you actually want no matter what. Because, hello, they might say, okay, Steve Harvey could have said to him, all right, have a great life. But this was not a thing. I'm just taking a moment to share about some negotiation skills, right? But when you are very clear on what you want, it's very easy. So I don't care if it's getting $250 for your initial consultation as opposed to $125. If you know that you're only going to do it if you get $250, then say that's what it is and don't worry about it. And guess what? Just like Steve Harvey and Mikel Welch, so many people are going to go, okay, I'll pay that. Okay. So the thing is, it's doing the hard work to be prepared. Okay. So just like Mikel did. All right. And then, he described the risks he took and how he's still taking them because he believes in himself. He describes how his budget for PR is just a little bit more than his rent that he's paying, but he's making choices. He sees the vision for his future. And it just goes to show us that at his level, we might say it's all set. Everything is just falling into place. No worries. But no, that's not the case. He's still playing the chess game and he's still making sure he's set up for his next move. I love it. It's smart. I love smart people. So, all right. So are you coming to either the Lunch and Learn with Blanche Garcia of B. Garcia Designs at WindowWorks this coming Monday, February 19th? Blanche was on the show about a month ago, and I'm going to tell you what, if you haven't heard that show, you need to listen to it. And then once you listen to it, if you are a stone's throw from my showroom in Livingston, New Jersey, you know that this is a Lunch and Learn that you have to be at. So you can go over to the WindowWorks Facebook page. You can go over to windowworks-nj.com, and you can find the RSVP link for this. Okay, it's on Eventbrite. You can even search it in Eventbrite. And then, of course, there is the big podcast birthday party. We're turning 2. Yes, we are. And that is going to be next Wednesday, 1 week from today, February 24th at Lefroy Brooks showroom in New York City. I have to tell you, we have over 100 people RSVP'd so far. We have room for more. Lefroy Brooks is very, very generous, and they are happy to have our big gang over there. So I hope to see you. We've got a lot of people coming in from out of town. Darla Powell's coming up from Florida. Liza Jones is coming in from Virginia. Sarah Wilson is coming in from D.C. Baltimore, I guess she is. Gwen from Bayberry Cottage is coming in. Who else? Paula Kinney is coming in from Ohio. Oh, my goodness. And then, of course, all my New Jersey and New York peeps are coming. So, if you can think about coming, it's going to be a really fun, fantastic night. And I'm so grateful and thankful that we've made this milestone, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. All righty. Now, before I let you go, what are you going to do today in order to help you be prepared to get lucky? Think about it. What are some of the things that you can do? Maybe you can list 2, 3, 4, but all you need is one. Think of one thing, one step that you can do in order to prepare yourself to be lucky. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.